Parents of Reddit, what is the most expensive thing your child has accidentally ruined? The television. Apparently, running the scissors over the screen makes it look better. I was washing my van one day 3 years ago and my 2-year-old decided to help wash the other side, with rocks, scratched right down to the primer. I gave him an older car that still ran and was usable and he sold it, and bought a car that was even older and didn't run because he wanted a Mustang. When I was a kid, my mother lost her diamond wedding ring. She was devastated. A decade later, while cleaning things up for a garage sale, we found it jammed in the toilet of my Barbie house. My dad, a realtor, once sold a house and a condo to a guy whose daughter had burned down their old house. The house was for the family. The condo was for the daughter. I asked my dad how it had happened and he said the guy just told him. She's always been like that. My eye. When she was 6 months old, she was sitting in my lap playing with some toy. She suddenly got really excited and flailed her arms up. Her fingernail dug deep into my eye. 3 surgeries later, I still can barely see out of that eye. And it's visibly screwed up too. Not egregiously, but if you look me in the eye my pupil is clearly more oval than circle. And needless to say, I won't be telling her about this until she's an adult at the earliest, and even then only if she asks. Must post this for my dad. Right after I got my driver's license I was backing the car out of the garage and ran over half of the push lawnmower. I didn't want to lose my newly acquired freedom. And this being January, I just turned the lawnmower around to show the good side and went about my life. Cut to April. I'm doing my homework and my dad comes upstairs laughing. Hey sweetie, your dad? When did you run over the lawnmower? January. Mad laughter from my dad. He gave me a pass on it for my craftiness. When I was about 12 I somehow managed to break my nan's Youtube 1000 stairlift while riding it. A diamond earring. Gifted by my mother on my wedding day. Diamonds swim in the big potty guys. My sister destroyed not 1, but 2 blenders by leaving a spoon in them before turning them on. The explosions were impressive. Our brand new flat screen TV. He was 2 and threw his toy truck at it, obliterated. Never wanted to disown him more than in that moment. My daughter ruined my phone when she was about 2 months old. She threw up on me and it splattered hard enough to hit the phone just right while it was charging and it fried the charging port. My 18-month-old shoved my Surface off a table and it shattered on the floor. You know how cats like to knock things off tables just for the hell of it? Just like that. He looked so damn proud of himself. 2. My brother ripped earrings out of both my mother's ears when he was a baby. He did one, then the other a few days later. I guess the cosmetic surgery to fix it was expensive and insurance didn't cover it. Don't wear big earrings when you're holding a baby, ladies. My kid blew the motor on a Ford Contour. I guess he thought the temp gauge was nothing to worry about. Watching Netflix as I was doing the dishes. Had to poop. 3-year-old daughter drags kitchen chair up to sink. Decides to help do dishes while I'm on the toilet. Goodbye $1,200 laptop that is now soaked in about a gallon of water. We had a 90-gram salt water tank with easily upwards of $3k worth of coral, fish. I went to work a night shift and my son unplugged everything for the night. My husband didn't notice. Everything was dead in the morning, and the house smelled lovely. My son watched me Windex the windows one day while cleaning. When I put the spray bottle down he picked it up and soaked 2 flat screen TVs down. It got sprayed so much some seeped in behind the screen and ran down the inside. They still work, but have funny vertical lines that are permanently distorted. 20 years ago my friend's young son was making puzzles and he cut up his father's original Star Wars A New Hope 1977 poster. His father told me he had to shrug it off because his son didn't know any better. Best punishment served cold. The son is now a young Star Wars fan and he would do anything to own that poster he himself ruined. When I was about 3 or 4 back in 1997, my dad left the house for an afternoon and my mom was busy downstairs. Well, my dad had set up a massive, and I mean covering an entire room massive, model train set. Everything was intricately laid out. and the track went on forever. When my dad got back home, I had disassembled it all. I'm not talking pulling the tracks apart. I broke apart every little thing I possibly could. The whole track was in thousands of pieces. It wasn't the most expensive thing in the world, but goddamn did he love that model train set. 16 iPads. How did our child ruin 16 iPads, you ask? Well, let me tell you. My wife is a teacher. In her school, each child is assigned an iPad for educational purposes. When the school year is over, the iPads have to be wiped and reset to factory settings. Of course, this has to be done after school is over. She was running behind getting her classroom prepped to be cleaned and still needed to reset them to factory settings. She brought her iPad cart home with 22 iPads in them. She laid them all down on the office floor and made an assembly line. She got to the last one and left to do something else. Came back and our daughter had played the floor as lava on top of 16 of them. The screens were trashed. Some of them would power on, but the touchscreen function was gone. She had to call her principal and explain. She got a royal ass chewing for it. But lo and behold, the next year they were planning on switching to Google Classroom instead. All new Chromebooks for the kids. The stereo in our minivan quit working. After a little troubleshooting, we found 25 pennies shoved in the CD slot. When my sister was probably not even 2 years old, she knocked over and broke my dad's 12-string bass guitar. He still doesn't let her live that down. My chemistry teacher's son drove into a building. His car slipped and I saw something. It wrecked the brick wall completely, costing him $10K to repair. My grandpa was in the Navy, and when he took his youngest son, my uncle, onto a ship for a tour, my uncle wandered away for a little bit. They found him dropping Whoppers, the candy, not the burger, into whatever openings he could find. Supposedly, despite the crew working tirelessly to find them all, they'd still hear Whoppers rolling around for years to come. Middle child was barely a toddler when he ripped the legs off a pair of $300 sunglasses that my newly serious boyfriend, now spouse, had forgotten that he'd set in a case in the backseat of his truck prior to giving it to me to drive while he was working out of town. Oopsie. Kid found misplaced forgotten case, opened it and proceeded to play with sunglasses until they died. Oldest child once fed lettuce to the DVD player. Not particularly expensive, but it was an amusing WTF. When I was about 4 or 5, I destroyed our upstairs and downstairs bathrooms. I had this little blue bath toy whale, and I had told my mom before that I wanted it to go to the ocean. So one night we were going out to dinner with my aunt and uncle. I go to the bathroom before leaving and put the sink stopper on and my little whale in the sink. When we come home, we can hear running water. The upstairs bathroom floor, which was the downstairs bathroom ceiling, had collapsed and there was a waterfall coming from upstairs. This one wasn't me, but happened to my friend way back in high school. We needed to get into the attic for something. Attic was in garage. Parents weren't home and his sister's car was under the attic. He turned her car on, accidentally put it in neutral, revved the engine and panicked. Hit the gear shift into drive quickly. The car totaled his dad's motorcycle that was parked in front of the car. The car also went through the wall straight into the kitchen. Ended up being tons to repair and replace. Edit. See below for another story about him. I left the controller charging cable plugged into the front of my PS4. Son thought it looked like it would fit perfectly into the wall outlet. He ran to tell me mom. I popped the house. Fried both my PS4 and our 55 inches TV. Son was okay though. At least I could replace the electronics. My son turned a 1-year-old car into a submarine. We get flooding here every time it rains, so locals know to stay out of puddles. Except my son, I guess. I've asked him many times what his comfort level driving through water is. Mine is 2 or 3 inches. He somehow managed to flood the car to the middle of the steering wheel. I knocked over my mother's massive pine china hutch when I was about 12. It destroyed all the china and everything else in its path. Then there was the time we used the neighbor's new sports car as a slide for a few hours. With our sandy shoes on. We were about 6. It required a complete paint job and some body work to repair. Man, I miss the 80s. One son destroyed a video camera when I left it on top of a speaker with the cord connected to the TV and he pulled it down. My fault. My daughter flushed my college ring down a toilet. My other son tried out my hammer on the hood of my car. Put a nail in the floppy drive of my computer. This back when drives were expensive. Early 80s. I think it cost me $250 back then. My dad went all out for his first grandchild and bought a really expensive crib in the neighborhood of $2,000. As soon as my son was old enough to stand, he chewed all the paint off the side rails for the crib around the full perimeter. It's not easy to touch up. Some sort of special child-friendly paint. We started keeping a tab on all of his damages so we can hand him a bill at his wedding. I asked my dad, when you were 4 you threw a treat for the dog into the garden. It landed in an extremely old, extremely valuable flower pot. The dog ran straight into the flower pot and knocked it off its platform. You also gave the dog a concussion and she crapped herself in shock all over the expensive rug that was outside for cleaning purposes. Thankfully that was so much bad luck that I'm guessing everyone in our region was able to win the lottery for a decade afterwards. A microwave. I fried its brain. Back in the late 1970s, my parents had saved up for their first fancy new JC penny branded microwave. I want to recall that it was close to $400, which in 1970s money is a heck of a lot of cash to spend on a small appliance. The delivery person had just set it up on a table and left. Apparently, microwave delivery was a thing back then. All of its accessories were still laid out. At that time, it came with a meat temperature probe because people thought it was a good idea to actually cook real food in a microwave. The probe had a 1/4-inch mono plug on one end. Think of an electric guitar cord, a wire, and a long 5-inch pointy meat jabby thing on the other end. Being a small child of about 5, I opened the door, saw the potential to insert tab A into slot B and went about it. Well, it turns out the meat jabby part of the probe should not be inserted into the port in the microwave because the whole thing quickly went poof and subsequently was dead. There is some debate if I was holding onto the metal part of the probe when this happened because I could have been dead too. Good times. My dad told me not to play baseball in the backyard. I did. Smashed the windshield on his new S-Class. Years ago, my sister broke about $2,000 of my father's fishing rods, gifts from a client and friend, over the course of about a week. My social life. Bank account. The answer you are looking for is a $1,000 flat screen. He was unhappy with his younger brother TV choice so he threw a large plane at it. Makes sense. My 2-year-old destroyed a $1,000 TV. It was set up on a coffee table temporarily during football season. I went into another room and heard a loud crash. I came out to see the 2-year-old on the coffee table and the TV on the floor. I asked him what happened and he says I push it. It go boom. He also had the habit of getting his hands on things he knew he shouldn't have. Then when you ask for it back he would run away. When you chase after him and get close he would throw the item. Several phones were destroyed this way. I'm sure he has ruined over $2,000 worth of stuff. My daughter, aged about 3 I believe. She was well aware of the fact that she was only allowed cola as an occasional treat, but of course being 3 she felt if we didn't see her stealing it was cool. So we took to placing it in the top cabinets. One fateful day I heard a fizzing sound and running liquid, then my daughter bawling her eyes out. I found her standing on the counter with a 2-liter bottle of Coke slowly emptying itself onto her grandmother's brand new laptop. She was panicking because it was heavy and leaking and didn't know what to do next. Looking back it was hilarious, but it wasn't very funny at the time. Laptop dried out and had a very sticky keyboard. Somehow it was salvageable and I ended up getting it up and running after replacing the keyboard. $20 part. Squirted saline solution in the drive slot of the computer. $1,200. Fed 4 handfuls of dog food to 50 gallons fish tank. $300. Clogged sink with Barbie shoes. $120. Broke both ports on front of PS3. $125. Nail polish on bedding. $40. PS3 controllers. 3x. $90. Peeled surface texture from wall. $150. iPod touch. $150. Cut holes in clothes with scissors. $50. Picked window tint from inside of car. $200. Clogged sink with cat food. $120. Sharpie on kitchen table. Have not replaced, removed successfully. Entire tube of toothpaste spread onto bathroom. $3. Flooded shower throughout bathroom. Stain still in kitchen ceiling. Plus too many makeup, liquid, and food messes to count. Oh, and it's not that we are inattentive. All of these were done in the middle of the night and with complete silence. Edit. Just want to say, wow, this blew up and I wasn't paying attention. And yes, she's difficult because she had a hard life before she came to us. So, not most expensive, but very expensive at the time. My child was 5 and his little brother was just born. My husband had lost his job some months before. I'd had a stocked pantry, so we were rationing for meals with the money we had left. My child opened a 5-gallon bucket full of sugar and ruined the whole bucket, mixing cleaners in it. 5-gallon bucket holds almost 20 pounds. He did this before I knew he was awake in the morning. He thought he was playing sandbox. They did it at preschool. I was so angry. That sugar meant a lot, dignity in a way. I had flour and sugar and so pancakes, cakes, cookies, bread, food that made you feel more human. Yeah, no, there wasn't money to replace it. We qualified for food stamps a couple weeks later. Our money was getting to the wire. I sat down and I cried at the letter. $300 a month was a lifesaver. We were only on food stamps for a few months when my husband was offered a job. We had to have in-laws co-sign a loan for enough money to move. That job has been very good for us. I'm grateful for it every day. Took my sugar for my coffee out of the same bucket this morning. So did the kid. Drove my mom's car into a ditch when I was 8. Apart from thousands of dollars in odds and broken ends, I think that tops the list for me. I'm not a parent, but my younger sister somehow managed to ruin all the plumbing in one of the bathrooms of our house. The same sister also backed a golf cart into an AC unit that had to be completely replaced. It wasn't our AC unit or our golf cart. She's also managed to ruin the engines of 3 separate cars. My great-grandfather used to say my mom could break a crowbar, and that saying has now been passed down to my sister. When I was around 7 or 8 years old, I went to the hardware store with my dad to pick up some paint that was supposed to be for my sister's room. It was my job to hold it tight and steady on the way home since the lid wasn't secured. Well, I ended up spilling that paint all over the interior of the car, the front seats, the back seat, the center console, the dashboard, everything. Almost went deaf from how loud my father yelled at me.